What's going on, everybody? It is Dom from Clover Trading coming at you with another video this week. Today, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Today, I have a guest, six-figure student, Jordan O'Gwyn. He is J-Bones in the Clover chat. I've known him for a very long time. He's been trading for 4 years now. He's been in and out of my office, and he's got a pretty cool story. So we're going to get into that today. So thank you for joining me, Jordan.
I'm happy to be here.
So Jordan, why don't we just talk a little bit about your come up, how you found trading, what got you interested in it, and what that first, year or so was like.
2017, I'm sure you remember this, but you were my foreman at our landscaping company that we used to work at. They actually put this guy in charge of other human beings. So 2018, the summer after that, he was gone, and it was just his brother and I. And every other day, Matt would just be complaining, oh, Don made this amount of money, that amount of money, and him and I are just working for whatever wage we were making back then. And that was kind of what planted the seed in my head, and that's kind of how I knew day trading existed at all, was because of Matthew. Fast forward to 2019, I had made the decision to drop out of school. It wasn't even 100% to pursue day trading. I was really just looking for an excuse, a way out, and it just so happened that Dom had turned into this great teacher by that point, so that was a major opportunity for me, and I reached out to Dom. I said, hey, could I just come and watch and see visually what you're doing, because I don't really understand it.
And at that point, we were in the apartment and Jack Kellogg was in Michigan as well.
Jack Kellogg was the roommate. A week before I even started trading, I went over to their apartment just to hang out, and Jack had just crossed 100K. They were doing a seafood night.
Look how far we've come.
Jack crossed 100K, and they celebrated with shrimp and lobster, and I got the invite. I think we went over some of Jack's trades at that time, and I remember that really just kind of being the early stages of my motivation was this kid came from Connecticut. He's made $100,000 trading terrible companies, these OTCs and penny stocks, and maybe there really is a niche here, because like I said, when I dropped out of school, it wasn't to go straight into day trading. It was more of drop out, figure out what to do, and then I found day trading. So 2019, I think it was February 13th, that was the day that the money landed in my E-Trade. It was $2,500 that I had saved up from working at a chicken restaurant in Lansing, Michigan. E-Trade was ready to go, and then pretty much the worst thing that can happen to a new student happened that day. I walk in, Jack is in one corner, Dom is in the other corner. They both look at me and they say, buy BYST. And so that was former runner, OTC, terrible company, obviously, like most of them. And I didn't even know what I was looking at, but I was like, okay, I'm gonna buy BYST. And it was a successful breakout, my first trade ever. I made $500 in a day, and I was like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do the rest of my life. I'm just gonna show up and make $500 every day off OTCs, and eventually I'll be a millionaire or whatever.
Wasn't that easy?
No. 2019 started to drag on a bit. After February, OTCs were almost non-existent in terms of runners, and at that stage, I hadn't even looked at a listed chart, or I didn't really even know anything about listed stock.
And at that time, me and Jack weren't really trading listed stocks. We had made our first 100K trading OTCs.
Yeah.
That's all we did, and then it just shut off in 2019.
Yeah, so I was very stubborn as far as waiting to dive into listed stocks. Trying to trade OTCs, end up losing probably $2,000 of my $2,500 over the course of 2019. And then by the end of September of 2019, I had to quit because my parents were just like, what are you doing? Nothing's really happening. I'm going to Dominic's apartment and pretty much playing spike ball with our friend Emilio every day because there was just nothing going on. Parents made me get a job, found a job at a Thai restaurant. I was cooking food, learned a lot there. Then by the time that March of 2020 rolled around and all of the craziness going on, yada yada, I started to see charts that made sense to me again. There was 5 months maybe where I was like, that's not gonna happen. The window kind of closed. But then I'd say January of 2020, I noticed some activity coming back as it usually does around the holidays. So I'm starting to look at charts. I'm seeing some OTCs that make sense. I'm seeing listed stocks that have OTC fundamentals that Dom taught me. I'm slowly learning to adapt those OTC fundamentals to listed stocks as far as, the trademarked swizzle pattern and just general ABCDs, multi-day breakouts. Things were really starting to get crazy around those early months of 2020. May 15th was the day that I quit working at the restaurant. I had, I think, $5,000 saved up at that time. So I was like, okay, it's time to give it a go, another shot at this, because I would see Dom and Emilio at the gym while I wasn't trading, and they would just be telling me stories about how plays are starting to work again and they're doing well. Emilio is surpassing me because he never quit. So that was very motivating for me to have that collection of moments where I'm like, maybe I gotta throw my hat back in the ring. Like I said, May 15th rolls around. down, got about $5,000. I'm like, let's do this. I go back to the office. They welcome me with open arms. And from May of 2020, I've had one red month since I started. Every other month was green. Just listening to Dom and then kind of taking those key points that he's really good at teaching and adapting my own strategy to that. Maybe taking profits a little bit more aggressively just to stay safe. And I think that it's just led to pretty much smooth sailing.
I'm a big picture trader. I like to trade the daily chart, hold for big picture moves, build in maybe over the course of days, and look for, not just the meat of the move, but a lot of the move. For those of you who don't know, I would think you would primarily call yourself a scalper.
Yeah, more or less.
So how was it learning from me? Because I think so many people have mentors and educators that don't necessarily do exactly what they want to do in the market. How are you able to take what I do and how I like to see things and kind of make it into your own?
When I came back in 2020, I was basically like, let's play it safe. Let's try to be consistently scalping these plays. I did that successfully. It worked out great. And then 2021, I would say that most of that year, with how insane it was, I really was more of a big picture trader back then because it was really easy. I didn't have very many sleepless nights because there were so many gappers. My overnight positions were pretty much safe all the time. I wasn't worried about excess toxic financing because companies were able to borrow money for so cheap that you didn't really have to worry about offerings as much back then. There's just general momentum that made me feel safe. So 2021, I feel like I was sort of following your big picture mindset. And then obviously 2022 was the polar opposite of that year. So very early on, I just discovered that for me, at least, this isn't going to work. I have to change something. So I went from trying to build into multi-day charts and look for the big picture to more of a strategy of trying to hit a multi-day setup maybe 2 or 3 times on the front side and then use some of that money to really up the risk on the backside where I'm better at timing the bounces, timing the first green days. I think that's my strong suit. Roughly speaking, just kind of, 2 or 3, 6, 7, 8 to 1 trades on the front side if possible, and then roll over some of those profits to really increase the risk for that final first green day or reversal or whatever you want to classify it as. And I think that by February of 2022, I was like, that's my niche. I have to keep doing that. It's working well for me. I just saw a lot of legendary traders just really struggling. So I'm like, what are they doing that I can just tweak a little bit, do something a little bit differently, and just keep my head above water? In the long run, if I use the big picture mindset, I will end up making a lot of money because that's just what the market tends to do. But in the short term, I don't want to be stressing day to day because I feel like the losses affect me just a bit harsher than some of the people that I know who are really just stone cold and, they don't think about the money and it doesn't affect them as much. And so I just kind of looked at price action. Breakouts are crappy. So let's just try to take advantage of the momentum while it's there. Really focus on aggressively locking into strength on those runners. And like I said, loading up for that bounce on the backside.
You seeing that the market had changed. The COVID stimulus check market wasn't here anymore. We had a lot less runners. When we did get any sector momentum, it was really short-lived. Do you think it was really good about changing your system on the fly and being able to adapt to the current market? Or do you think the way you're trading right now, you're probably going to keep that style going forward and just continue to use more size on these, smaller parts of bigger picture moves? Because the way you're doing it, it's really impressive.
As far as adapting on the fly, I've been doing the same thing since that market shift in 2022. If there is another shift, the real test is, am I going to be able to adapt back if bigger picture plays come back into existence? Because, you develop habits the way you trade. So am I going to be able to flip that switch back to more of your mindset? I don't know yet. I was very grateful that I was able to pick up on that and change my strategy. But as far as will I be able to do it again on the fly, it's yet to be seen.
Why do you think traders struggle so much going from one market cycle to the other, or something as crazy as 2020, 2021 into what we saw last year and even a lot of this year?
I think it can maybe be a little bit of ego, but I think that for anyone that's got their eyes glued to the screen 8 hours a day, really studying price action on large caps, small caps, penny stocks, it was just really obvious that something had changed. I really don't know how to sum up why most traders weren't able to adapt. I'm just really thankful that I was,
How often do you study your numbers, study your system, how it's working? How do you do that?
Honestly, very lazy by nature. I should have been recording all of my trades since I started, but I haven't seen any of my statistics until 4 days ago when I signed up for Kinfo. I tracked for, I think 2 months, but I was only taking 30 or 40 trades a month. Ever since I've been a high frequency trader, adding, cutting, stuff like that. That felt way too tedious for me to track. What I really think is important, for me at least, I have to stick with one bias, which is long. I've never been a short seller. I think I could count on 2 hands the number of shorts that I've made since I started, honestly. I think that for beginners, you should try to stick with one bias right away. I'm a visual learner, so I'm seeing price price action on the tape, failed breakouts on the chart. I don't feel like I need, a big spreadsheet to tell me that clearly something is off. So one of my other biggest learning strategies is if I'm taking excessive losses in a row, or if I take like a notably big loss, I print out and pin up every single chart with like 2 or 3 paragraphs underneath. I have like a collection of them now, but what I did wrong, how bad did it feel? When you have that pain, a lot of people want to bury it from a big loss or something. It like so valuable as a learning moment, and you really want to like bathe and soak in the pain and remember it. This is like pseudoscience, but I feel like that is what changes your brain, whatever the neurons or whatever, but you need that pain to really tell you not to do it again and to actually make a change. April this year, for example, biggest losing month ever, only losing month ever, lost 10 grand, felt horrible, ruined my vacation. I'm like questioning my ability for 2 weeks straight. Then I followed up with my best month ever. So I really think that the pain and soaking all that pain up is key in helping you make those changes.
And you mentioned that you've never really short sold and that you're primarily 99.9% long biased, pretty much only have like what, 2 patterns, right? You trading breakout setups, maybe different points in the breakout. And then first green days, I've seen you do really well on. And that's, one of my core patterns that I've seen work the best probably this year because they've happened so infrequently and you know exactly what you want to do when they happen. Do you think that is a big indicator to how well you've done?
I know personally a few traders who trade 5 to 6 patterns, very well, but I think there's only so much time in the day, and that if you can narrow it down to 1, 2, maybe 3 patterns, that you have those extra hours to really fine tune each pattern and spend that time on each pattern. And you just start to notice things that you can't even quantify, or, as far as price action and so, like there's some things that you can't even explain to people why I'm doing it or why I feel this way. It's just you see the same charts developing, you see the same moves happening literally thousands of times over the course of a few years now. So I think that if you're looking at the market in terms of 1 to 2, maybe 3 patterns, you have a lot more time in the day to really fine tune and, smooth out those patterns. It was never my plan. I eventually wanted to sort of branch off into short selling, but I just never really got around to it. I never really felt super compelled to do it. And I think inadvertently that kind of ended up helping me polish those 1 to 2 patterns.
Well, I think that's pretty much all I have. So I want to say thank you, Jordan, for coming on, talking to the people of YouTube about your journey, a little bit about your evolution as a trader. Is there anything else you want to say? Any information you want to put out there? Any advice to your old self you want to give to any beginners out there that are struggling on their journey?
If I was just starting out trading right now, A, not sure I can do it. It's extremely difficult. B, definitely don't try to have both biases. I think that is just completely overloading yourself from the beginning, shooting yourself in the foot. Narrow it down. I think that you can do a lot more than you probably expect from yourself.
Well, thank you, Jordan. Make sure to subscribe to our channel, like and comment on this video with any future suggestions for videos, maybe even any questions for Jordan. But that's all we have for today. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you in the next one.